Welcome to this explainer. Look, I know Joshua chapter 15 is the one we all tend to skip, right? It feels like boring filler. But today, we're completely peeling back the layers on this text. We're going to reveal a really profound, totally dynamic map of sacred geography that honestly sets the architectural stage for the entire rest of biblical history. Let's get right into it. So, at first glance, Joshua 15, it just looks like a massive, ancient logistical spreadsheet. It's totally packed with these highly detailed boundary descriptions and endless lists of ancient, unpronounceable cities. You're definitely tempted to just skim it, thinking it's administrative filler, tracking who got what piece of dirt. But treating this text as ancient bureaucracy, that is a massive category error, and it causes us to miss the absolute brilliance of what's actually happening here.
To really get this, we need a complete paradigm flip. Think about it. When we look at a modern map, what do we see? We just see neutral real estate, right? Administrative borders. But in the Old Testament, the ordering of space is never neutral. It is highly charged space. Drawing boundaries in the book of Joshua is literally an act of theology. This land they are entering is morally volatile, and so dividing it up, that is actually an act of worship.
Which brings us to the absolutely crucial concept of sacred geography. See, what Joshua is doing isn't just ancient map-making. He is taking the Torah, God's law, and turning it into physical infrastructure. He's actively transforming chaotic, pagan space into a highly ordered inheritance, ensuring that justice, worship, and covenant life can stabilize under God's kingship. These boundaries are being drawn specifically so a newly formed people don't just evolve into doing whatever is right in their own eyes.
Now, notice how the boundaries form this sort of cosmic rectangle of contested space. Look at the edges. You have the wilderness representing entropy and decreation, and the Great Sea representing untamed chaos. Israel is being commissioned to move inward from these chaos margins to establish a stabilized, ordered habitation. This isn't just some migration, it is a full-blown cosmic reclamation project.
What we're actually seeing play out is a new creation pattern. Think back to Genesis 1, where God brings order out of chaos by separating and assigning domains, right? Well, Joshua is doing the exact same thing with redeemed creation. We go from creation through the fall, the Exodus, the conquest, and we finally arrive at inheritance. Dividing up this land is literally an act of recreation. It systematically replaces the disorder of Canaanite rule with God's ordered, life-giving kingdom.
Okay, let's move into our first major concept, the theology of renewal. Specifically, how God reclaims territory without erasing its history.
What's truly fascinating here is the historical honesty of the biblical text. When Israel takes over, they don't just pretend the pagan religious history of the land never existed. They don't wipe the old names from the map to create some kind of revisionist history. Instead, they reclaim and redeem the territory. It's an incredible proof of a major biblical theme. God's kingdom restores and renews rather than just destroying. He doesn't just toss out the old, he completely transforms it.
Check out these specific examples right from the text. You have Baalah, which was literally a pagan site dedicated to the false god Baal, and it becomes Kiriath Jearim. That's the very place where the Ark of the Covenant later resides. We see New Hazor being built right alongside the ancient ruins. We see places that were formerly associated with false worship being radically transformed into sites of priestly ministry and divine presence. God clearly specializes in redemption here, reclaiming what was misused and consecrating it for His glory.
So that brings us to our second big shift, moving from survival to stewardship, which is really the shift from manna to land.
For 40 years, the Israelites lived in what we could call the manna era. It was daily, it was highly miraculous, completely unstorable, and entirely survival-oriented for a wandering people. But crossing into the Promised Land kicks off the land produce era. Now, this requires seasonal cultivation. It is storable, and it is entirely responsibility-bearing. It's this incredible graduation, moving from the survival spirituality of the wilderness into the mature stewardship spirituality of dwelling in a permanently ordered land.
Now, it will be really easy to read the end of that miraculous manna as some sort of loss of the divine, right? But the text absolutely refuses that interpretation. As our sources put it so perfectly, Yahweh is not becoming less present. He is becoming structurally embedded in daily life. His provision hasn't stopped, it's just changed form. Now, to experience God's blessing, it requires obedience across seasons and faithful long-term stewardship of this inherited land.
Moving on to Section 3, let's explore these amazing echoes of Eden and the geography of abundance.
As we zoom in from those macro boundaries down to the micro details of the towns in the lowlands, something shifts. The text stops sounding like a military conquest and actually starts sounding remarkably like a lush, beautiful garden. We hit specific city names like En-Ganim, which literally translates to Spring of Gardens, and Tapua, meaning fruit tree. And right in the middle of this, there's a fascinating little micro-narrative about a woman named Aksha. Instead of asking for weapons to go fight giants, she wisely asks her father Caleb for the upper and lower springs to water her land. It's such a brilliant illustration of a vital shift. The Israelites are moving from this fear-based perception of giant-filled cities to a faith-led possession and cultivation of a genuinely fruitful inheritance.
This whole concentration of water, springs, and fruit imagery, it's highly intentional. It reflects a very clear Eden to new creation trajectory. Joshua is deliberately mapping a move from the dry, chaotic frontier straight into the fertile, abundant lowlands. And it reveals something profound. God's ultimate goal wasn't just to rescue his people from Egypt. It was to plant them in a flourishing creation that beautifully echoes his original design for humanity.
Finally, let's look at the ultimate blueprint and how Judah takes on this massive canonical role.
You might be wondering, why does Judah get this incredibly specific, highly detailed allotment? Well, by meticulously defining Judah's borders, Joshua is quietly establishing the geographical stage for nearly everything that follows in the Bible. Think about it. Inside these exact borders, we will later find Bethlehem, Hebron, and Jerusalem. This is where David will rule, where Solomon will build the temple, and ultimately where Jesus the Messiah will be born, crucified, and resurrected. The geography itself becomes the sacred stage where the ultimate redemptive history plays out.
And this completely illustrates how the earthly inheritance of Judah actually anticipates the universal scope of God's redemptive mission. If we look at the structural parallels, Joshua, whose name literally means Yahweh saves, is this proto-apocalyptic figure. He points directly to Jesus. What Joshua does on a limited geographical scale in Canaan, subduing chaos, establishing a sacred dwelling, that is the exact pattern the book of Revelation scales up to the entire cosmos.
So when we pull back and look at the whole picture, Joshua 15 is definitely not just a dusty list of unpronounceable counts. It's a profound theological blueprint of God transforming sheer chaos into a redeemed, consecrated dwelling place. It is the ultimate story of creation being ordered, history being redeemed, and a people transitioning into the mature, faithful stewardship of God's promises.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder about our own spiritual stewardship today. If God is fundamentally in the business of transforming chaotic, fear-filled, or even pagan spaces into fruitful, ordered sacred ground, what hidden territories in your own life are just waiting to be reclaimed and reordered under His kingship? Thanks for exploring this explainer with us, and keep seeking out those profound patterns hidden right in plain sight.